Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Thank you to those of you who joined us for the pre-show a few minutes ago. We really appreciated it. We appreciate hearing your feedback, your questions. Actually, we got a question for this session, so we will prioritize that question. But we really, really appreciated you all coming in half hour early to, just chat with us. Alhamdulillah, this is part four of our series on rebuilding the African American Muslim family. And today we are going to talk about polygamy. We hope, inshallah ta'ala, that we will be able to bring a fresh perspective to this issue. Inshallah ta'ala, we have two coaches here with us. We have Ustadh here with us, and just different perspectives of people who are in polygamy, coach polygamy, grew up in polygamous families, and we are really excited to hear their insight. So I'll do a brief bio. Mom, do you want to say anything before we do brief bios?
Well, I just want to say assalamu alaikum to everyone. I'm so pleased that you're able to make it to the show. I'm excited because I am going to be educated today, I'm sure by all of you. Assalamu alaikum, brother Jubril, for getting in. We're happy to see you because, our audience is like, wait a minute now, where's the brother? We had one show last week and they're getting all antsy and we're like, just hold your horses now.
Apologies, it's about 12:17 p.m. here in France. That's why it took me a while to. Yeah, it's quite late here. Okay. Apologies.
It's quite okay. We appreciate you being here. Yeah, so again, I'm sure the audience is looking forward to hearing from you all. And like I said, I'm part of the audience as well. I'm here to learn and for you to share and educate all of us. So welcome.
Alhamdulillah. So I want to introduce all of our guests, and forgive me for looking down for a moment. I just want to get their Instagram handles correct. So Ustadh Jubril, he has a program called Study Arabic in Africa. So you can find him on Instagram through that program, a really excellent program where you learn online in combination with going to Africa to continue your studies in Arabic. And then we have Coach Nyla of Outstanding Personal Relationships. You can find their handle. Okay, I'm going to ask you for the specific handle just so I don't mix it up. So I'll come back to that, inshallah. And then we have Coach Mecca, and you can find her, the co-wife coach. So alhamdulillah, we're excited to have all of you here with us today. So really quickly, Coach Nyla, what is, because I don't think it's any personal relationship. That's probably too long. So what's the Instagram handle for your website?
IG handle is actually outstanding relationships, because outstanding personal relationships is a little too long. So yes, outstanding relationships is our IG handle, and outstanding personal relationships is our other social media.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. So as with many of our guests, once we're done with this conversation, then you can follow them on Instagram. I know Coach Nyla and I know Coach Nyla, you will have a lot of videos on YouTube. I know Coach Mecca, you have a lot of stuff on Instagram. And then instead of Jubril, you can look at his online program. So we want to start by asking, who are you? And what is your relationship to polygamy? So what is your particular vantage point in this conversation? So I'll start with you, Ustadh Jubril.
So Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu wa-salamu ala Sayyid al-Mursaleen wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in wa ba'd. So my name is Jubril Alao. I was born and raised in Nigeria, in Ibadan, to be specific, in Nigeria. And I'm an IT project manager by profession and a part-time Arabic teacher by passion. My relationship to polygamy is that my father, I was born in a polygamous relationship. My father had many wives. And my mother, for example, was at the time of marriage, was the third wife before she married him. And I have many brothers and sisters, about 35 brothers and sisters, to be more specific, and I'm number 16 of them. And I the third from my mum. So my mum had 8 children from my father. So I basically grew up not knowing the meaning of boredom and not ever having a boring day in my life, basically, because there was always something to do with my siblings. So that's the perspective of having lived in a polygamous setup in Nigeria.
Okay, alhamdulillah. So that's really exciting because I don't think we get to sort of know the perspective of those who both grew up in polygamy in terms of their own family and their culture. So what does that look like outside of America in a culture where that is normal? We'll come back to that, inshallah. So, Coach Nyla, I'll go to you next. Who are you and what is your relationship with polygamy and what is your unique vantage point?
Righty. So it's yeah, Coach Nyla, of course, of outstanding personal relationships. With me, my well, my thing is that I am a what they call the subsequent wife, second wife, or whatever you will, in polygyny. So it's a whole other dynamic when it comes to that. I am also a polygyny coach, a relationship coach as well, with outstanding personal relationships with my husband and my wonderful co-wife coach Fatima. So pretty much been in polygyny, married in polygyny for 13 plus years, still going, alhamdulillah. And I'm a bonus mom to 7 wonderful bonus children and a mom to, 5 biological children. So just pretty much decided to, people asked us about it. So decided to say, do we just keep this to ourselves? Like, how we got over the different bumps and trials and different things like that to get to where we are 13 plus years going. Do we keep it to ourselves or do we help others when we hear so much negativity about polygyny? So decided to start outstanding personal relationships and become polygyny coaches as well. So.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and my lovely sister, Mika, please introduce yourself.
All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Mecca Nandi, and I am the co-wife coach. Now, as far as who I am first and foremost a servant unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as well as a wife of almost 27 years in a couple of weeks, inshallah. And I am also in a polygynous marriage where I am one of 3 wives. I don't like to say which, well, for chronological reasons, I am the first wife, but those are all my sisters. I have 2 awesome co-wives, and I've been in polygyny for I could say 20 years now out of the 27, soon to be 27 years of marriage. And it's absolutely an amazing thing. We have children. We actually have children collectively. We don't have 35, but we do have 4. They still don't get bored because we got that one that's probably equivalent to like 12 that keeps everybody on their toes. But alhamdulillah, it's a beautiful thing. And I'm glad to be able to be here to share.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, so the next question would be, how does polygamy fit into rebuilding the Black Muslim community? What are your thoughts on that? Anyone could take this. This is a conversation, so please jump in. I know the gentleman will more than likely be the gentleman and let the ladies go, but you can certainly go ahead, ladies. Answer that question for me, please. How does polygamy? I'll repeat it. How does polygamy fit into rebuilding the Black community?
It definitely is what I look at it as, and what we talk about from OPR standpoint, outstanding personal relationship standpoint. We talk about it being a ancient solution to a modern day problem, because you have a lot of different things that plague the community, whether it's incarcerations, whether it's the gay agenda type of thing, whether it's the single parent households and things like that. So Polygyny in itself is a modern day, ancient solution to a modern day problem, because there's so many out there, so many of these different things out there. But you have that as a solution where you do have the sisterhood with those. And of course, we'll say it just for the sake of saying it when it's done right. We already know, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about healthy marriages, healthy relationships. So being able to have that, you have the building of families, the connecting of families, being able to be well-rounded and wonderful members of society by being able to see things from a different standpoint. And it's not just a me type of thing, or it's just a one for one type of thing. We all, in my family, we state it's a one for all and all for all, y'all. So being able to teach that and see that that's what polygyny actually offers. And it's not, people see it as what they see it as. And, they put a lot of negativity and a lot of stigma on polygyny, but it's not polygyny that's the issue. It's the people in polygyny that are not doing polygyny like polygyny should be done. That's the issue. So as long as the people are doing what they're supposed to do, then of course it's going to be a lot of improvement. It's going to be a lot of maturity and these different things like that. And you can see the future generations and the legacy building in it because you're leading by example.
Good. All right. And we'll get back to doing it the right way. And you guys are going to give us, because that's why you guys are here. Because yes, we do find that that is a problem in our community, that a lot of it is not being done the right way. Right. And is it a fit for everyone? Right. So this is another perspective, that we're looking at as well. Sister Mecca.
Well, my dear sister Nyla really put a lot of emphasis on some of the points that I wanted to make, but I want to also add to the equation that it also can actually be something that can help you turn back to you, as well as your relationship with your creator. Because there's a lot of different, just like anything in life that's a challenge, that challenge comes with possible growth. Sometimes if we tap into that part, we allow ourselves to see greater gains in those areas that has an effect on the actual family structure, especially when it comes to the woman. Because when we as women, when we are healing, when we're doing our work, when we're actually growing and having healthy relationships with ourselves, with our creator, as well as within our marriages and within our family structure, everybody is affected by that in a positive way. And being able to understand that, yes, things may not necessarily be, we hear a lot of nightmare stories, but that is not necessarily a polygyny thing. I think someone emphasized earlier, that's a people thing. And a lot of people realize that they don't know how to go about it. So it kind of opens the door for reconstruction and reconditioning of having a better understanding with self, creator, and then family in order for us to possibly build it. But Sister Madonna, I think you actually made an excellent point that it is not for everybody to practice. Just because we're talking about this does not mean that each and every person is supposed to be practicing it. However, it is for everyone to have an education and an understanding of it. So that way, if they're going to navigate through it, they're prepared. And if they're not, but if they're communicating with others that may be, in that type of lifestyle, they have a better understanding of what they're practicing. They just know that it's personally not for them.
Very good. Thank you. Brother Jubril, what is your perspective on this?
So Bismillah. This is basically the same opinion that I have on any marriage structure. In any institution, if the Sunnah is followed, you will gain excellent results. In any institution, if the Sunnah is neglected, it will lead to problems. If you look at monogamy, when the Sunnah is not followed with monogamy, you have many horror stories. You have many hurt brothers, many hurt sisters, many damaged children. You have so many horror stories, and these horror stories should not deter us from entering monogamous relationships. We should just know what Allah requires of us in such relationships and do the best, as Allah has asked us, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Have taqwa to the best of your ability. If we take that same mindset and attitude into any marital structure, then you have a guarantee that if you try to have taqwa and if you do things to the best of your ability, and Allah, of course, is the invigilator of whether you're doing something to the best of your ability or not. Allah is not a lot of technicalities, meaning, if you technically look as if you're doing the right thing, but intention-wise, you're actually just there for an ulterior motive, then, Allah will judge you based on your intention. But if you truly are trying to fulfill the Sunnah, are trying to raise righteous children, are trying to raise righteous families, are trying to draw closer to Allah, with any single institution you enter, whether it's monogamous or polygamous or polygyny, then you will actually meet Allah's grace in it. It doesn't mean it's not going to be difficult, doesn't mean it's not going to have challenges, but whatever challenges you face, and you face it with taqwa, and you face it with really trying your best to be good, open communication, knowing what Allah requires of you in it, knowing how the Prophet Muhammad SAW, did in such institutions, then you have a real chance for success. And I think, as has been said earlier, it's something which, unfortunately, we've thrown away this part of the Sunnah by and large as an ummah. Where I come from, in Nigeria, we've not done this because it's actually part of our culture. What the Sunnah came to do is just limit it, because my culture doesn't give a limit, right? We had someone like one of our famous musicians, Fela Anikulapo Kuti. He married 27 women in one day. I took pictures with them. But our deen, that's our culture. But our deen came to say, no, you gotta limit it to 4, and you have to be fair and just, to the best of your ability with them. So for people like me, where from a cultural perspective, the deen restricts and regulates it. But when you look at other cultures where 1 is the norm, then it looks as if the deen opens a door to something which they don't have any frame of reference for, other than through, a man having more than one wife. Most people from the West, the only frame of reference they have for that is cheating or is unfaithfulness. So yeah, it's a challenge, but it's in that institution, if done with taqwa, if done in the right place, with the right intention, with the right mindset, with the right tools, then like with anything else, you have God's guarantee of his support and tawfiq.
So I want to just ask on one note, because I think we hear this idea of performing polygamy as a sunnah, or following the sunnah in polygamy. What exactly does that mean in sort of more of a practical? What are we talking about when we say that?
So in a practical way, first of all, even monogamy, Allah says, Prophet Muhammad said, "Man istata'a minkum al-ba'ata falyatazawwaj." Whoever is able to afford to house and take care of what the woman eats and drinks, then let them get married. So that's for one. If you're going to afford more than one, then you have to be able to have an agreement with whoever you're marrying on what that entails, what that structure entails. I know that in the kind of life that we live in, the kind of civilization that we live in, it's very difficult for most men to physically be the only one supporting even one household. And then many families will think, oh, if you're not supporting one, why would you even look at marrying more than one? That's a fair argument. And you can, you'll find scholars that would weigh on different sides of it. For my culture, for example, you would only marry more than one if you can physically afford more than one. For basically it's something that's reserved mainly for those who are wealthy. But in certain situations where you can actually speak to whoever you're going to marry, understand what you're going to be contributing, and that's accepted before marriage, discussed and all of that. And in doing all of this, one, your primary aim is to draw closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with marrying someone, whether it's through keeping away from sin, or it's through actually with the intention of marrying someone that you would, with your interaction with this person, will bring you closer to Allah, whether it's through having more children, whatever, there are many reasons why it can be for the sunnah, either keeping away from harm, wanting to draw closer to Allah by having more children, or having more, or even actually just bringing someone else involved in an Islamic marriage. Even that is, if that's your sincere intention for it, that will be it. And then Sunnah, the second part of it is to have taqwa to the best of your ability. So when you then have one, the Quran it says, وَلَن تَسْتَطِيعُوا أَن تَعْدِلُوا بَيْنَ النِّسَاءِ. You will never be able to be just with your women. وَلَوْ حَرَصْتُمْ. Even if you tried. Many people stop at this part of the verse. They don't read the next part. So they say, that's it, full stop. Allah has said you can't be just. Don't do it. But Allah actually, there's the next part which says, فَلَا تَمِيلُوا كُلَّ الْمَيْلِ فَتَذَرُوهَا كَالْمُعَلَّقَةِ. This second part of the verse cannot be implemented by someone in a monogamous marriage. It actually says, so do not incline towards one such that you leave the other like a hanging cloth, right? So this second part, it only applies to people in a polygamous, a polygyny marriage. So, which means what Allah requires of you in such institution is that you try your best to be just. And what is haram is that you incline towards one to the extent that one of them is left feeling as if they're just there. And this is a challenge for anyone who goes into this, and they have to really have taqwa and know that, there's a famous hadith where Prophet Muhammad said, whoever marries more than one and doesn't fulfill the rights of both will be raised with one to be bent on one side and another narration to be as if they're paralyzed on one side. So this is not a small thing. The sunnah is treat whoever you're married to with fairness, with open communication, with love, and on a material level, you try to give both, equal things. And of course, hearts are different. You will feel different with different people, even with your own children. You can't love your own children the same. You'll be a bit more closer to one than the other. But as long as what is shown on the outside, that you try to be just, that you try to be fair, that's what Allah requires in such an institution. And Allah knows best.
Sisters, would either of you like to respond or add anything onto what Brother Jubril said?
Can I actually bring in, as they respond, inshallah, bring in the last comment from our pre-show? Then someone asked, Ustadha Jubril, he just mentioned that this harm of inclining towards one over the other. And so that sort of ties into the question that someone asked Tahira. You asked, how do you not feel replaced if your husband takes a second wife? I think that is a great question to ask our co-wife coaches. So, inshallah, Mecca, I'll go to you first.
So, please repeat that question.
Okay. The question is, Tahira said, how do you not feel replaced if your husband takes a second wife?
So I guess, that would definitely fit me, being as though that I have two other co-wives, right? That came in after our marriage. But I will definitely say that if you have that feeling, it should not be based on anything that anybody else is saying. Like a lot of times people say, oh, he's doing this, so this means that he's replacing me. Who is saying that? Because majority of the time, it's not that man. It is normally what we tell ourselves. And I say what we tell ourselves because I struggled a little bit, especially early on in polygyny. I had my ups and downs. I call it the adjustment period. But you have to be mindful and be aware of what you tell yourself in those instances. Now, if those words is coming out of his mouth, then you got a problem. If he say that he's replacing you, then you have a bigger problem than polygyny. Polygyny is just making it, bringing it to the forefront. But if no one else is telling you that, then this is what I mentioned earlier, as far as how it can be a blessing, as far as the rebuilding of oneself, reintroducing yourself, as far as being able to reconnect with you as well as your Lord, and even within that marriage that you actually had. You'll be surprised. So I felt like that in some ways, not necessarily those exact words, but I definitely had my insecurities in some ways where I was thinking, oh, she's younger than me, that must be it, and this, that, and the fourth. But it wasn't no one else but me saying this. That was not the case. And when I addressed that with me, as well as having conversations with him, it was really clear as to where the problem kind of lied, because it had nothing to do with a replacement. And once I actually did my work as far as just kind of like working through some of the garbage that was left behind, because let's not forget that there are elements, they're the shade team, they do come and they try to come in between marriages and relationships with the ones, we have sort of was it sort of nas, where those that come and that may whisper into the heart of mankind. Those weren't thoughts that I may have had earlier on when we were talking about polygyny, the first 7 years of us being in monogamy. I never struggled with that, not until I started comparing myself. And that is a big issue and a big problem. So I would say when those thoughts come about, take a step back. Because if you never heard those words come out of his mouth, then you have to ask yourself, where is these thoughts coming from? Where are these feelings coming from? And if it's nobody but you, then we have some work to do.
Okay, so that takes me to the work that has to be done before you even get to that particular process, right? Because it's like anything else that we're planning to do, we have to prepare. So question rightly to you then, I see we lost the other sister, but she should be back in. How does one then start preparing for such an arrangement? What are some of the things that you had to do first with your husband in terms of conversation and yourself, because you did mention, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you've been discussing it for a while, right? So take me back there, take us back there.
Can you repeat the last part a little bit, because I didn't hear everything clearly?
I think the last part I said was, how did you prepare yourself, right? You starting with him first because he's the person that's taking on an extra responsibility. So how does one start that process?
So having that conversation with him was important, but it wasn't anything new, because we conversed about polygyny even before being in polygyny. But when I would have these moments and he would notice my energy, he would notice the energy change. So sometimes the discussion may not have necessarily been me initiating it. I may have possibly been trying to hide behind the mask of I'm okay, but he, us having the connection that we had, he knew that I was not okay. So sometimes those conversations were initiated by him. There were some moments where I may have initiated the conversation. But once we actually talked, and once he assured me, like, that's not whatever it is that you're thinking, that's not the case, then I actually had to turn within myself and say, listen, just like I just said, these are things that I had to do with myself. I had to ask myself, where is this coming from? Why are you thinking this way? Why do you not see you? And why do you not understand your value? Once I started doing those type of steps and asking those questions and answering those type of questions was when I started to see and feel a difference, being able to be more understanding of who I am in our marriage, as far as my one-on-one marriage that I have with him, as well as my position within our unified family. Like, I'm not being replaced, because my co-wives, as smart as they are, as beautiful as they are, and as wise as they are, and as skillful as they are, they're not me, and I am not them. So if anything, I understand now, or it took me some time to understand that I had to stop comparing myself to what it is that they were great at, and not paying attention to anything that made me uniquely me. So once I started focusing on that and really seeing my value, because that's what it really comes down to, understanding and seeing your value and appreciating it and holding on to it and being grateful for it as well, it allowed my sense of security and my sense of self to become more stronger, and in a way where it allowed me to be more happier. I like to say HIP, which is an acronym for happy in polygyny. It allowed me to become more HIP within our family structure, which then I saw that we all were working on the same thing. I hope that answered your question.
You did to some extent, but I'm going to poke a little bit.
Sure, poke the bear. Poke the lion.
We'll get back to Sister Nyla. Thank you for joining us again. So I'm hearing a lot about you. What about your husband? What did he do to help you prepare for this, right? Because we know sometimes men take it for granted that, okay, this is what they have a right to do, right? And a lot of us are not going to challenge that right because it is their right. However, there is a preparation just as the sister is preparing for the situation. What are some of the specific things, if you can share, that he had to have in terms of getting ready for this process, getting ready to create a home for a second or a third wife? What are some of those things? And I'm basically getting to the discussion of finances, right? And all those things that we oftentimes hear about, like, as a brother said before, if you're not prepared to take care of one household, how are you prepared to take care of another? So if you can just expand a little bit about that, like how did he prepare with you, right? I believe you may have answered it earlier. You've had different discussions several years.
Yes,
so that's part of the preparation.
It was a part of the preparation, but my husband also came from a polygynous family. So it wasn't something that was new to him. He knew, like, before we married, that he made it clear that it may be something that he may possibly practice.
Okay.
So it wasn't, so that starting off in that way, in that manner, and having discussions over the year, and also him understanding what it takes to even be in that particular situation. It was like that was a part of our first 7 years of marriage.
Interesting. That makes a difference too.
Yes, it does.
Even though Brother Jubril did not choose that lifestyle, again, it's a choice.
But I want to add to this, because a lot of times people put so much of an emphasis on a financial part, because a brother could be financially fine with it, but you also have to understand that he has to prepare himself as well as his family emotionally as well. Correct. You know, spiritually as well. We want to make sure that we're all keeping all of these things into factor. It's not just a financial thing. Oh, money can come and go, and you can actually be in a polygynous situation and not have an extreme huge amount of money.
Sure.
Because you have some women who are in polygyny with a man who has the financial abilities, but he does not, he's lacking emotionally as well as spiritually, and they're miserable. So we have to make sure that we're keeping all of those things we want to mention all of those things,
right,
in order for us to understand that in order for us to have any type of structural relationship and connection, regardless if it's monogamy or polygyny, we have to consider those things as well. The spiritual, the emotional, the psychological, the mental, as well as the financial abilities, and even physical abilities to be considered, you know, when moving forward.
Right. And I think, and I'm going to get to Sister Nyla. I think she's having some difficulties. So yeah, I think emotional maturity is critical based on the conversations that I've had and have observed. Emotional maturity is absolutely important, because how does a man then begin to juggle? I hate to use the word juggle, but you know what I mean. You know, handle the psychological and emotional situations with women who have different personalities, right? So I don't know, Brother Jubril, have you, based on your cultural background, if you can share with us, just in terms of your observation coming from a polygamous family?
So yeah, with you have different types of structures when it comes to polygamous. There's some, but what you'll find with a lot of the men that are, you know, in polygamous families that are really working well, is that they're excellent listeners. You know, they're very good at really understanding and taking time to listen. There always seems to be people that can absorb a lot of storms. So things can be really going really badly with people shouting around them, and they are usually the ones that keep the calm, that no matter what it is, you just see them keeping it all together. And yeah, in my experience, what you mentioned earlier, Sister Mashallah, it's the emotional maturity is so critical in something like this, that a man understands his position as a qawwam. You know, qawwam is one of those things that, from an Arabic perspective, if you look at it, is someone that has to turn up every single day and serve. Similar words like that in Arabic language, like khabbaz, a baker. A baker turns up every single day and bakes a lot of bread. And a baker doesn't have a day off, right? They have to bake 7 days a week, otherwise the whole town, doesn't have as much bread to eat, basically. So the same way, a qawwam as a man will be someone who will turn up every day, serve his family every day, and have that mindset of service and mindset of wanting to, know how to be diplomatic in various situations, knowing what to focus on and what to sort of just let slide. All of these traits are traits that actually are important in monogamy, but way more so when you're now dealing with two souls and two lives, or three or more. So these are the kind of traits that I would say that I've seen with people that take this, structure.
Mm-hmm. Sister Nyla, are you there? Can you hear us? I don't think she can. Right. So I'm going to stay with you a bit, Brother Jubril. So again, you grew up in a polygamous family. What are some? Let's look at. I think we dealt with some of the positives already. But what are some of the negatives, if there's any? I'm not looking for any, but realistically speaking, we're human beings, so we're always going to have some situation or situations that may be negative. What are some of the negative things that you may have experienced, or may have, you've seen it, you've experienced it, and you decided this is not necessarily for me?
The biggest thing in a relationship like this is jealousy. That's the biggest, where you find that, you start to interpret actions from your spouse in ways which you wouldn't have interpreted it if you were in a monogamous relationship. So, for example, if you're in a monogamous relationship, you'd be okay with your spouse going to work for 2 weeks abroad, right? You'd be fine with that. Like, oh, he's working for us, right? But if it was a polygamous relationship, and the person needs to go to the other wife for 1 week, you'd be like, no, 1 week's too long. So that is a real big part of it, where the jealousy, and that's natural, it is something that's natural that we all have to deal with, and I can't really speak for women on this part, because I cannot imagine being in those shoes. I think it's best for women to really give advice as to how to deal with something like this. But I know that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he wanted to marry, I think it was Zainab, when he wanted to marry her, and she responded to him, actually, when he proposed to her, she said to him, "I'm a very jealous woman." Right? The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't rebuke her for the jealousy. What was his response? He said, "We'll pray. As for your jealousy, we'll pray for it." Right? So that's what every man faced with this should do: make dua for his or her spouse, that they're able to deal with this, because it is a test for them. It's a test of their patience. Sometimes it can even come as a test of one's faith. So jealousy is definitely a big part of it, and jealousy, like with any other ailment of the heart, has many children. Right? And many, many bad children, right? It can lead to, malice. It could lead to despair. It could lead to you totally taking even good intentions as bad. It has so many other things. But, to deal with it as a disease of the heart, or as something which, of course, polygyny can exacerbate, one has to really make dua to Allah to show us the truth as the truth, and give us the ability to follow it. Meaning, understanding that if someone is with another person for the sake of Allah, it doesn't always interpret as them disliking you or hating you or making you inferior. And basically asking Allah to allow one to be able to see things as they are, and not necessarily as Shaitan whispers to you, or as your ego whispers to you. But yeah, that is a really big thing, jealousy, that it has just so many other things that come out of it. Of course, another disadvantage that comes especially from the man's side is if the man isn't wise enough and doesn't know how to basically handle the diplomacy of making sure that he turns up to each wife as though they're his quote-unquote favorite. But Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it said that many of his wives thought they were his favorites until his last time, until he passed away, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he then asked to be in the room of Aisha. He was someone who would treat his wives, everyone who would be with him would feel as if they were special around him. So a person who doesn't have this mindset or doesn't have this skill of being able to treat different people in a special way and make everyone feel special probably shouldn't be someone going shouldn't be someone going into a relationship like this, because if anyone, no one deserves to be made to feel as if they're secondhand value, right? No one deserves to be made to feel as though, oh, you're no longer important. I'm going, So these are the kind of disadvantages that can come out of jealousy. If an inexperienced person or someone who just doesn't have the skills of diplomacy or the skills of dealing with two different people and trying to show excellence to them both. Those are two things that I can, definitely talk about from having lived in it. Because with my father's passed away now. May Allah have mercy on him. About 9 years ago now. But with him, you could see where I could see the pluses from what he did, and I can also see some of the things which you can tell that maybe that's not necessarily the best thing to do. But but that's my experience of this, and that's what I can say as far as the disadvantages.
I appreciate that. Sister Nyla, where have you been, girl?
My goodness. Okay, so apparently I had to change the whole setup because I was getting bad. I don't know what the heck was going on.
It's okay. We're going to show you.
So, could you repeat? I'm looking. I heard some things about jealousy and a number of things like that. So I definitely want to speak on that. But I'm trying to see, what did I miss? What do I need to answer?
Well, let's start where Brother Jubril ended off. Some of the difficulties that you would actually no. Let me pause on that. I'll go back to the question before that. How does one prepare themselves to enter such a relationship as polygyny?
That's a really good question too. And
what did you do? What did your husband do? How did
see, that's different. That's different. And this is what I'm going to say is different. And that's alhamdulillah, dealing with my baby girls, my biological daughter and my bonus babies. Like we teach at OPR, we're like, okay, we learned through trial and error, which is not the best way to go through a number of different things. So, but being able to go through and learn some things, go through personal development, improve on ourselves, as well as how we operate on certain things, our emotional intelligence, all of that stuff is important. We have to do that for our own benefit. So the way I didn't prepare for polygyny, like I would teach, like I'm teaching my daughter to prepare, because my daughter, she wants to be in polygyny. My bonus daughters, I want to say maybe one or two of them who don't mind, one wants to be in polygyny for sure. The other one I think doesn't mind. So, but preparing them just for marriage, period. Because the thing is this, we have to really still understand that polygyny is a form of marriage.
Absolutely.
Yes, there's different dynamics and things like that, but it's a moral form of marriage. And preparing for polygyny, you're preparing for marriage. But yes, there are different dynamics that you must be able to prepare for. As a woman, as a wife, you are not practicing polygyny. Your husband is practicing polygyny. You're not. He is marrying multiple women. You are not. You are still in monogamy. Yes, that person is a part of your family. Yes, that person, even to the point where I do tell people, I'm not going to pretend like him marrying someone else does not change the dynamic of your life. Yes, it does. The thing is that how you prepare by making sure that you're in your personal development, your spiritual development, staying close to your deen, understanding what that means, understanding what personal development means, understanding how great you are and being happy with that. I talk about, I teach women on confidence, communication, and connection. So those type of things is important. Those things are important. Being able to have this confidence, being able to communicate properly, having that proper communication and connecting with yourself, connecting with your creator, connecting with your spouse. The thing is, we're not married to our co-wives. People make it seem as though that it's this big old thing, and we are not married to our co-wives. We have the respect. We should have the respect that this is a person, that's in our lives. This is a person in our husband's life. This is a person in our family. This is a human being. In Islam, this is our sister in Islam. So those type of things are important. And not look at things in a different way. You know, sometimes people look, oh, this person is marrying my man or marrying my husband, you know, these type of things. And it takes away from for one, we know that we submit. As Muslims, we are ones who submit. So we understand that Allah put this in place. So our questioning it is, you know, us questioning Allah. And I know people will have their issues with it. I said, people are not going to like me. I am not the one to be, you know, it comes to that time. It comes to that point. Sometimes I've been that way since people say, oh, well, she's the second wife, or she doesn't understand what first wives go through. I understand a lot of things more than people more than people know, but I am an accountability coach. So when it comes down to it, we have to be accountable for what we do, what we say, what we feel. Feelings, yes, that's real, that's understandable. But we need to be mindful of that we have control, or we should have control. And if we are blaming other people, then we take that control away. And we have to expect them to fix the thing that we have an issue with. And everybody's not going to fix it the way we want. You know, we want it to happen. So we have to be on that. So what I teach my daughters is that you got to build your confidence. You need to learn what you love about yourself, what's great about you, what's amazing about you. These beautiful things, these unique things, like what Mecca Nandi talked about earlier. Like, I know how, you know, my uniqueness and the beauty that I have. Those type of things are important. That's what you bring to the table. Your husband is not trying to marry a whole bunch of yous or a whole bunch of hers or anything like that. You bring something unique to the table, and your husband married you for a reason. So that is, focus on your marriage, mind your marriage. And we talk about that a lot and train on that a lot. So being able to teach our daughters that, as well as being able to communicate, in addition to communicating so you are received. Not just that you're just talking and giving lip service, but that your husband is receiving the information, but you're also receiving the information that he's given as well, and then connecting with one another.
Okay, so I'll put you right there. I need to take you back to you. You were getting ready to enter into a polygamous marriage. What are some of the things you did to prepare? Now, if you don't mind me asking, no. Are you the first or the second wife?
Second wife.
Okay, so you're the second wife. You're about to enter a relationship with this gentleman. Mm-hmm. What did you do to prepare yourself, and what did he do? Because I know I asked this question, of course, particularly to the sisters, because of course we're all individuals, right? And when we are preparing to go into something, we deal with different emotions, and a bit about emotional maturity, right? Psychological preparedness, and that also our culture that we come from affects the decisions that we're going to make and see how things are, right? So back to that place, like, how did you as an individual prepare yourself? Because I hear the coaching part.
Yes, coaching. My preparedness was not like what I'm coaching. My preparedness was that I read about polygyny. Polygyny made sense to me, and I know I've been in monogamy before, so this wasn't my first marriage. So my thing is, and I tell people, I said, my husband, the husband that I married, Coach Nadir, he checked off the boxes of the leader, the man, the husband, the father of the children, you know, my type of thing that I wanted. So he checked those boxes. It just happened to be that he was married to someone else. And that wasn't haram for me to marry this man. So the thing is that I knew that. That was my long and short of the preparation. It's like, I know that that's the case. I know that, you know, it's not haram. I know that it's permissible. And I know, and I had faith that he would be the leader that he should be and need to be in order to make the things work, because he is the husband, he is the imam, he is the leader. So, however, because I didn't prep for the other stuff, I dealt with other things, you know, such as the different jealousies and the ups and downs of different emotions and other things like that. So yeah, my prep was the long and short of that. but I didn't prep enough. So my coaching comes into others so they can prep for the other things, the unexpected or the things that you may not think about. Because people were like, well, how did you not think that she would feel this way? How did you not? Because I'm Muslim and this is what I thought and this is what I felt and I wouldn't have had a problem with it. Oh, you wouldn't know until he married someone else. Honey, I married a man who was already married to someone else. I don't need him to marry someone else to feel anything. I can make myself feel any way I want to, if that's the case, if I choose to.
No, I'm sorry, Nora. I just wanted to do a follow-up right behind this, because some of the other things that we hear in the community is that, or at least it should be, and I'm glad you're being transparent, because we do learn along the way, right, to improve our lives in situations. And it's not necessarily polygamy, it could be monogamy also. You get into a relationship and you learn and you mature and you figure out the bad and the good and you try to fix things in the middle, right? So that I don't see much of a difference. The only difference is that we are also dealing with another human being, right? Is it suggested, because I've heard this in conversations, that the women don't have an opportunity to meet each other, to have a conversation before going into the relationship? Is it feasible? Is it practical that another sister should meet the current wife to have a discussion, to have, well, I know that you're coming into this relationship. Let's have a powwow. Let's have some tea, some coffee, some biscuits, something, a dinner. Let's talk. I mean, because really, that's the realistic part that people really want to know. Like, your husband's like, okay, honey, I'm going to, Khadija's house. You know that I married Khadija, right? So I'm going to be at her house next week. And you're like, okay, but I haven't met the sister. So both of you sisters, walk me through that. How did that happen for you?
Well, quickly, one thing I think that, in the perfect world, and if people just do it, and I know some people that do, which is amazing. So that's the thing that we would like for people to do, because, you're part of the family. With me, it wasn't that way, Coach Fatima talks about it a lot, and I usually kind of let her tell her side of, the thing. But we married first, and then Coach Nadir told, Coach Fatima. So it wasn't that, but we knew each other already. And I was married before. So this wasn't oh yeah, this is a man that I want to marry. It's just second time around. It was like, I've met this family. I've seen them before. I've met them before. They're amazing. The daughters. So my mental wasn't that she would have this whole issue, because the decision is ultimately his. I'm marrying him, not her. And she will agree the same thing. I'm not, and it's not my job to tell him, hey, did you tell your wife this? Hey, did you da-da-da? That's not what it is. I didn't marry her. He's not, I'm marrying him. And I know, like I said, sometimes that seems so harsh to other people, but the real is real. And sometimes facts don't care about your feelings. So when it comes down to it, the thing is that, yes, I knew the relationship that I wanted to have with my co-wife. I talked to her about that before. So I was always, this is going to be great. I got this sister, she knows more Islam than me because she was in Islam way more, and they have these daughters, and my only baby girl is going to have these sisters. So I had all of this in my head, so that's what I thought, but that's not what happened. It eventually got that way where we connected, and, she finally reached back out to me and said, okay, I'm ready to have a conversation. I'm ready to I reached out to her. So, it's not going to always be that way. It's depending on the people. As I said, it's not polygyny. It's the people in it. And if the people are ready for it, or the people have to understand that it ain't all about me either, because the reason why a husband might want polygyny may never sit well with the wives. And that's not, Allah does not give Allah does not give it to the wives on how to do polygyny. It tells the husbands how to do it and what is supposed to be done and everything like that. Not the wives. The wives don't get the decision. The husband does. Allah gave it to the husbands for a reason, not for us.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Sister Mecca.
Yes.
Any questions, sis?
Repeat that question.
No, you guys are going to have me looking back at my notes all the time. Okay. But that's okay. The preparation, right? I believe that I asked, in terms of meeting your co-wife, did you have the opportunity to do that prior to getting, well, you're the first wife. Now I have to keep track. You're the first wife. So the second wife coming in, did you?
The second and third and the fourth one that came in?
Listen, obviously that's what you guys say. But again, that conversation between the women coming in, because as Brother Jubril said, you have these issues, and of course, I'm sure you would have experienced this, the jealousies, the assumptions, all of this, or the lack of emotional security or maturity, right, and all of that. But did you meet your co-wife or co-wives prior to them coming in? Did you have that one-to-one, sister, girlfriend to girlfriend type of conversation?
It wasn't girlfriend to girlfriend for all of them, but it was definitely a conversation.
Okay.
I'm just going to keep it real.
Please, that's what we're here.
So, I mean, each and every one, except you know what? The first one was different. The first one was different because I was a part of the introduction, right?
Uh-huh.
So it was a little different. And this was already someone that was working for our company, and she was, a friend of the family, as far as like his sister, friend of her, his sister. So it just made sense. But everybody else after that, it had like a wall built, like to protect. Because if you look like,
is that from your end or their end, or is it somewhere in the middle?
No, it's not in, because
you were still struggling a little bit.
No.
All right, go ahead.
I can sit here and say that I was struggling, but it was like I'm more protective, like that lion right back there.
Yeah.
I'm protective of my family. I always say, don't mess with my mama, don't mess with my dad, my brothers, my grandma, or my husband, or my kids. So I know that's a lot of people, but it's just like, he was obviously a part of that. And I don't know, like in the beginning, especially when it was, I'm sorry, not in the beginning, but when I didn't have a rapport or really knowing who those sisters were, like I knew the first one, it was just like, I'm looking at you like this, like I got my eye on you, like don't be
on the sisters or on your husband?
On his sisters, because I told him I don't know them.
Okay.
So when you have, and this is just, that was just my process.
Mm-hmm.
That was my process. And each time when we spoke, it was my energy was obviously guarded, and I wasn't disrespectful. Let me, because I don't want that to be mistaken. But I was more so guarded because I didn't know what was the intentions, like, because during that time, it's just like, you didn't see a lot of people opting to come into polygyny. And it's not to say that it was a long, long time ago, but it was just like, polygyny is still, even though you hear people talk about it a lot publicly, it's still new publicly. You see what I'm saying? A lot. There's been always a lot of like underground and kind of like backdoor type situations because of the way that people see it and what their experiences that they may project on other people. They think that it's this evil, mad, crazy, not smart, nasty, disgusting thing. Like, and this is coming from Muslim women that describe polygyny. Okay. So, and so those are not my words, those are theirs. So it was just a lot. I was a little guarded.
Okay.
I was a little guarded. I think the very last one, I was a little bit more okay. Like I wasn't as guarded, but it's just a process. And I think that if for some reason, because there's three of us now, if there was ever a fourth that was coming in, I think I probably would still be that way, because again, it's like almost like you get in the feel for each other. You literally, if anybody has cats, if you have one cat at home and then you bring a new cat home and it might be a new kitten, And they get around each other and they may be like, checking each other out, like, who are you? And kind of like it's being territorial. And I will say that it might not have been like a physical territorial thing, but more of an emotional territorial thing, if that makes any sense.
It
Where
does.
it's like, I'm not going to open myself completely until I get to know who you are and until you get to know who I am. So like getting to know on a deeper level may not have been the very first time that we spoke. The very first time is really the introduction. After that, it's either, it's other moments where we got a chance to get to know each other, but even that was initiated in some cases based on the practices of our husband, who had certain things delegated in order for us to get to be in order for us to get to know each other and spend time collectively as a family.
So I'm going to just finish this up, and then Nuri, I'm going to let you go ahead. So it seems to me what you're saying, that there's also a vetting process between the sisters who are getting into polygyny. Am I correct on that? Because I think at one point you guys told me it started out this way. Now it's at a stage where it's much better because you're dealing with all of these emotional things that I certainly believe the culture, influence some of that, right? If we're going to be honest with ourselves, because many of us have grown up into a culture of majority being monogamous, in monogamy, right? So when you come into polygyny, it's a different thing, and the culture, our culture in the West, does not prepare us for that. It pretty much prepares us for our husbands cheating on us. It becomes acceptable in many circles, in many circles, right? And it's funny because it's not funny, but it's also sad because I've also heard women say that they're aware, this is going to be a ticklish one, they're aware that their Muslim husbands who are not in polygamy are cheating. So how does one reckon that, right? Because she may not be comfortable being in a polygamous marriage, but he's going to find his way, and he wants to keep her, but he's going to find his way around, but he's cheating. So can anyone?
That, Mom, because that
actually
someone had that question. If you don't mind, I can get back to that.
Please.
We could get Ustadh Jubril in. He may have to leave early. So we were sort of talking about expectations and preparation from a child's perspective, seeing your father. I guess two things. What did you see as the expectations of the wives coming in, but also what did you expect from your father's other wives in terms of, as a child, what relationship did you expect? And I guess what relationship did you have with them?
For me, I actually called all my mom's mothers, right? So we had this thing, mommy 1, mommy 2, mommy 3. My mom is mommy 3. They call my other brothers to call them mommy 3, and we had a mommy 4. So we basically, that's how we grew up, mom or mommy. In fact, my mom, funny enough, because my mom was relatively young when she was married to my father, most people around her called her auntie. And I actually grew up calling my mom auntie because that's what I heard people calling her the most. So what I expected of each mom was basic. They all treated me literally like their own children. I would go to them. They would joke with me all the time. They'll tell you off if you do something wrong, but hardly you got told them more, mainly from your mom than anybody else. I actually was the only child from my father that had the luck that all my mothers were present in London when I graduated, and guess what? They all attended my graduation ceremony. I have a picture with my 4 mothers, on my graduation, and everyone at school was looking at, what is this guy? And they all dress the same. They all pick the same. They usually pick the same dress when they go out. So it was really nice. Me there at UCL, University College London, with these 4 very regally dressed African women, and I really love that. And then I took individual pictures with all of them. So what I expected of them was what they did. MashaAllah, may Allah have mercy on 2 of them that passed away now. May Allah have mercy on them and admit them into the highest places of paradise. But till death, there were people that really took care of me. I have fond memories of being around them, and as a child, I really enjoyed the fact that, I had more than one mother that I could go to and play around. And, it was really good from that perspective.
Mm-hmm. And no, yeah, because I know, Brother Jubril, you have to sign off soon. As a young man, have you had the opportunity, or did you have the opportunity to speak to your dad about polygamy, and what advice, if you brought it up, I'm just assuming, and what advice would he have given you concerning that, if you were thinking of considering?
I didn't actually get to speak to him about it. My father was very he would just let you do whatever you want to do, and he'll just be there supporting you with whatever decision you make, as long as it's a halal, decision, basically. But I don't. With him, he never encouraged or necessarily discouraged polygamy. Some of my siblings are in polygamous marriages, and most of them are in monogamous, marriages. So, it was something which he just allowed, people to make their decisions. There's some of my siblings that have seen the pros of what happened with us and decided, okay, maybe I can make it better with, what I've seen. On some of them that have seen some of the cons, and go, no, this is not for me. Right. So it's a different thing. There are pros and there are cons in it. The only difference is most people don't see the cons in a monogamous marriage and go, oh, I'm not going to get married. They usually will say, oh, I'm going to make my marriage better. But a lot of people that see cons in polygamous marriages, almost all of them will say, oh, I'm not going to do it, as opposed to I'm going to actually try to become better at it,
Mm-hmm. Okay. Nuri, back to you.
Yeah, and so sort of culturally, because again, you grew up in a culture where it was accepted. Culturally, what did you see as in terms of expectations or preparation? Do you know what that process was like? Was it uniquely different from monogamy when someone was entering polygamy? Was there anything they did distinct?
So culturally, very different in Nigeria. In Nigeria, culturally, the second wives usually enter such a relationship with the mindset of actually, believe this or not, serving the first wife and the husband, right? So they actually go into that marriage with the mindset of, I am going to make her life better. I'm going to serve her. I'm going to help her take care of her children. I'm going to help her do, and of course, serve my husband. That's how culturally a lot of women, culturally speaking, not with the religious element to it. So with Nigeria, you have the situation where even non-Muslims do have polygamous marriage. Just one of our previous presidents, Obasanjo, he had more than one wife. It's just a normal thing culturally. It's not something strange or new to the culture. And this is not just Nigeria. Many West African cultures are like that. So you go to Senegal, yeah, it's rife. It's norm for a man to have more than one. And from a preparation perspective, people just go into it knowing that, right, this person has more than one, and they're going to just try to be as excellent as they can be to the person. I have many close friends in Senegal that also have more than one wife, and you see them, in different modes in different houses, that they have, with their wives. So yeah, culturally speaking, many cultures just in West Africa, where I'm from, just accept it because it's a norm, it's what they see. And when they are then Muslim, they like it better than the norm of the culture because they now know that Islam actually brings with it certain regulations. You can't just one of my students, who is like a mother figure to me, mashallah, she said to me, one of the things many men don't understand about marriages is like, you could be married to someone for 10 years, but then the moment the person marries another person, those two wives have to be treated equally in the sight of Allah. And that's where the challenge comes from, in this, as to, from a cultural perspective, you might have spent 10 years with a man building a lot, emotionally, financially, and so on and so forth. And then there comes someone who then all of a sudden this person has to be treated equally in the eyes of Allah with you. So how do you prepare for that? some cultures make it easier, like West African cultures. I do not dispute the challenge that these kind of things bring to many Western cultures, because there's just no frame of reference, no positive frame of reference for it. But as we are Muslims, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ إِسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. We have in the Messenger of Allah the best of examples, and that's where we should all try to look to and see that, yes, did he have challenges in his marriage? Yes. Did he have fights with his co-wives? Yes. With the wives, did the wife have fights amongst each other? Yes. Did they, these are our mothers, these are our role models. So it shows that it's human to have challenges. It's human to in monogamous or in a polygamous marriage. It's just one has to do the best with what Allah has put them in, and فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ, have taqwa to the best of one's ability.
So I want to ask that, and if anyone, inshallah, want to take questions soon, but particularly if you have questions for Ustadh Jubril, because he does have to leave soon, then please ask them now. So I want to ask maybe a bit of a strange question, because I don't know if you have heard of this, Jubril and Ustadh Jubril, and to all of the panelists, there's sometimes this idea that the reason that Black men in America, I don't know if this is true in the UK as well, are polygamous is because of this West African connection, because it's common in West Africa and we sort of carry this culture to America. Do you think that has any validity? I want to sort of ask all of you, but I'll start with you, Seth.
I'll let the sisters try this first before I come through this.
I just believe that men are polygynous by nature, period. Just because when it comes to, like it's stated again, when it comes to polygyny is a form of marriage. When it comes to marriage has responsibilities with it. We're not talking about polyamory. We're not talking about cheating, the sleeping around, these different things like that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created men in this way where, they're leaders, they're, wanting to build legacies and these different things like that. It's not just, it's really interesting because people, I feel as though that they pervert, polygyny, or they cause this perversion in it, where it's like, it's just about this sexual thing, where it's a sexual orientation where, because, well, men want, more wives and to fulfill this lustful desires type of thing. And they pervert the beauty of marriage. They pervert the beauty of a man wanting to be more, wanting to have more, wanting to create a bigger, better legacy. And once that is, people start to look at that, I think that they'll start to understand it a little bit more. But a lot of times I'm like, okay, women are not going to understand certain things that men desire as much as men won't understand certain things that women desire. But I think I say alhamdulillah a lot of times, for being a woman and not a man. Even though I'm a woman in polygyny, people are like, oh my gosh, you can't have more than one husband. I don't want more than one husband, honey, please. Taking care, like giving being responsible as a wife for, one person, one husband is more than enough, so to be able to see what these men do, and to, instead of perverting it or looking down on it or trying to blame something, because when you place blame on something, you're saying something is wrong with it, or is some issue with it, some problem with it. And if you're blaming something about it, then you don't see the beauty in it. You don't see how it is a solution for a lot of the things. No, can everybody do it? No, everybody can't do it. Everybody shouldn't do it. However, that doesn't mean that the ones that are doing it and are excelling in it shouldn't be downplayed or talked about, or is looked at as something that is not a benefit to society.
So I want to push back a little bit, Coach Nyla, Coach Mecca. You can sort of answer, because perhaps men to some degree are polygamous by nature, but I would say that this is a uniquely African American Muslim issue. Not to call out any group, it's just probably the group I have a little bit of familiarity with. I think if we were Pakistani American Muslims, I don't think we'd be talking about polygamy, right? So there is something unique happening in the African American Muslim community where polygamy is a real option that people take. So we're Muslims, so it's legitimate, but in terms of who actually practices it, in America at least, it is a very African American thing. So I'll go to you, Coach Coach Mecca, inshallah. Is there something unique in the, is it cultural? What exactly is there anything unique that as to why we are practicing it in particular?
You say it in the Black Muslim community? Because if we talk about the Black Muslim,
now you're about to get an attitude. You're about to we can feel you. Go right ahead.
Well, I'm saying two things, I guess. I'm making a loose connection to the West African thing, to the African American community. So is it cultural and it just goes back to that West African culture, or is it cultural because it's circumstantial?
You know what? The best answer to that question is Allah knows best. Because at the end of the day, we can make all kind of guesstimations, but it's not going to, those guesstimations will not give us true resolution to some of the issues and the problems that we see within these communities, as far as based off of what we see that is the misleaded practices of some of the polygynous practices or polygynous marriages or previous marriages or failed marriages based off of polygyny. And it's like, you may have a feeling within, but a lot of us, like, you just take Islam. Like, I don't come from a Muslim family, so I'm a convert. But it was something about Islam that touched my heart. That obviously it led me to who and where I am currently today. Now that same feeling could possibly be a part of every man, or especially, American Black Muslim, that may actually have those practices, or those feelings within, but they don't know how to practice it, right? Like, I didn't know how to pray. I just knew that Islam was my thing. So, or Islam, it made me feel a certain type of way, and it was a drawing towards it. But what brought me here was education, research, classes, doing whatever work as a Muslim, as a servant unto Allah, in order for me to learn how to pray and understand a lot of different things and theories. So the same thing could also be a part of the what we see within our communities, where yes, it may be connected to our West African brothers and sisters, or just that practice within itself, but it also can go deeper than that. Again, like, that's why I say Allah knows best. But what I do know and what I can say is we need to be able to be more informed, well educated, and have more conversations like this based on the practice within itself, so that way those Muslims, those Black Muslims, those American Muslims that want to and choose to and are drawn to this particular practice, this form of marriage we call polygyny, if they are feeling this way, then let's make sure that when they practice it, or when they're going towards it, that they're doing it in the best of ways, in order for us to be able to have more healthier relationships. Because I remember someone said that in the beginning of this conversation, as far as having healthy marriages. Well, we want to be able to have that go into monogamy as well as polygyny. And if you see people in monogamy, they have what? Couples counseling, premarital counseling, or a couple of sessions with the imam before they actually get married to make sure everything is right. Why is this not done within our communities, especially our Black community, our Black Muslim community, where this is also a practice going into polygynous situations and circumstances? So my answer, that long answer, is Allah.
I love it. Before we get any questions, I want to get back to Nyla. And the beauty of this, and we're bringing this information to the community, is that you ladies have decided to specialize, right, in sharing, because of your growth, in sharing some of the, let's start with the negatives, right, to now the positives. And you have parceled that into a coaching business, inshallah, may continues to grow and serve that community. So you can share with people what are some of the steps that you have to take or should take, right? Preparing, because we all know as coaches or counselors that you can share as much as you can. It is really those who want to do it, practicing it and putting it into practice is another thing, right?
Oh yeah,
And from what
definitely.
I'm hearing the growth. So take us now to the counseling part of this. Now, I know that I believe, is it you, Sister Mecca, in terms of not only counseling Muslim couples who would like to get into polygamy, but you've also counseled other groups. And then you can talk about that. Or is it Sister Nyla?
I don't know if it's both, but
Okay.
I only work with the women, so I do
only with the women. All right.
Yeah, I only work with women too, but it doesn't matter if they're in polygyny or want to get in polygyny or not. So,
So go ahead, take it away, Nyla.
The thing is, it goes into a number of things, and three main things. Having a burning desire, a willingness to work, and being teachable and coachable. When it all comes down to it, that's where your change is going to come. You have to have all three. If you have one or two of the other and don't have the other one, it's not going to work. So, even when I coach my clients, I ask them, like, do you give me permission to push you? Do you give me permission? Because there are going to be things that I may say to you that you may not like. There may be things that, because I'm pushing you out of your comfort zone. There's no growth in your comfort zone. So being able to get out of traumas, get out of different dramas, get out of the social stigmas, and being able to be your own person and being able to think logically. Yes, we are emotional creatures. Yes, we do have our emotions, but being able to say, what, is this real? Or is this something that I'm, making up into something bigger than what it is? Or is this something that's benefiting me? Because maybe it is real, but is it beneficial? Because maybe I can move that and I can grow from this. It should be a learning process. I love when my co-wife says, she said, make your L's, your lessons. If it's your, losses, don't ever make them your losses, make them your lessons. And that is so true. You have to sit here and say, what is it? But you have to be able to ask yourself, and you have to be able to do the work. I can give you all the information. I can give you not only the information, I can give you the tools, I can give you the resources, but I cannot drag you and hold your hand and make you do it. They say you lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So that's the thing, being able to have a willingness to work, a burning desire, and be teachable and coachable. Because if you don't have all three of those, then you destine yourself for failure.
Mm-hmm. Sister Mecca, as a coach, how do you walk people through this process?
First and foremost, I guess, like, when it comes to being able to have a better understanding of what it is that you're going into, you have to have a better understanding of who you are as a woman. I mentioned that before, as far as that was a part of my own walk. Mm-hmm. I can't, you can tell me how great and how beneficial, this said practice is, but and it can sound great, but if it's not feeling right to me based off of maybe some things that I have not addressed within myself, or I have not seen, within myself about me, then it's going to be problematic. So the first step is doing the work, the self-reflective work, in order for us to be able to kind of, again, like I said, pull back the mask, see you and see where you are and why you feeling the way that you're feeling, and let's address that first. And then polygyny, because polygyny ain't going nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going nowhere. Let's deal with it. Let's deal with you and how you're processing or not processing this particular set practice that may be a part of your life, or it's about to be a part of your life, in order for you to have a journey where you can balance better the emotional things that may come about or that may come along with it, so that way you can have a successful marriage and be a part of a family that can at least be cordially respectable and respectful upon one another, as far as when it comes to those women.
Mm-hmm. Brother Jubril, what advice would you have for brothers considering going into polygamy? Polygamy itself, we know it's the process really, it's the human actions behind all of that really will make it work. So what advice would you give to brothers?
So first of all, I'm not sure whether I'm best placed to advise, because yeah, I'm not experienced in it. But the same
Coming
advice
out
I
of
would
the
give to
culture that you've seen.
yeah,
That
from my cultural
yeah.
perspective, is that if I give it from a cultural perspective, they say in West Africa, if you're going to do this, you must have broad shoulders. Basically, you must be able to take a lot and let it settle. You must have the himl, not him, hilm, they say in Arabic. You must be able to forbear things. You must be able to accept that, you know, basically dealing with one's soul and trying to be a good person to one's soul is enough as a challenge. You add one more to that, you double the challenge. So you must have the patience and the forbearance and the wisdom to be able to deal with people, with in the best way. From a deen perspective, I think that's where I'll probably be able to advise to myself or anyone, is that one must really have taqwa. You know, you must really be God conscious and God focused in everything you do. Every action that you do is based on the intention behind it. And if you are intending to marry someone for the sake of drawing closer to Allah, for the sake of building a good family, for the sake of, anything praiseworthy, then inshallah bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, as long as that's your intention, and then communicate. You really have to make it clear to all parties involved. You really have to be clear about what your expectations are, what you're trying to get in this, what is it that you look to, and you communicate this to all parties involved, and you're very open about it, and you're not someone that that is basically thinking something and saying something else. So taqwa, very important. Then communicating these, and of course tawakkul. There's nothing that you embark on that you can be guaranteed of what the results will be. So Allah tells us, فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. When you've done your best by having taqwa, you've done your best by asking Allah to equip you with the tools of patience, forbearance, and all of that you need in any marriage anyway. Then, of course, and then you make sure that your intention is sound. Then you go ahead and put your trust in Allah with regards to the result, and just know that it's a marathon. Like with anything, you will go through tough times, bumps and all of that. And in it, just run back to Allah every time and try to be very open in communication, and try to the best of your ability, just really be God focused.
Thank you for that. Okay, for that. Sisters, is there anything that you want to add in terms of, I know Sister Nyla, you and your husband and your co-wife do coaching, and mainly, as you said, he does for the males, correct?
Mom, I'm sorry. Can we just, Ustadh Jubril has to go in about 5 minutes. So I just wanted to, there's a question here for him.
Okay.
In terms of his personal experience, did you ever feel you didn't have enough time with your father?
Sorry, I was speaking on mute. Did I ever feel as if I didn't have enough time? Yes. We're 35 of us. So every time was precious. I did things with my father passed away 9 years ago, so I was in my 30s. I've done things with my children that are 15, 16 that I'd never done with my father, So yes, I felt like that a lot. It was very hard to have time with him. I still remember even most phone calls were relatively very short. But one of my sisters, my eldest sister, taught me something early on that really marked a change in my relationship with my dad. She said to me, so she would call my father every single day unfailingly, right? And she would speak to my father every day. That's what she would do. So she said to me that, look, your relationship with dad is not going to be on how he wants it. It's going to be on how you want it. So he said, if you want to have a good relationship with him, you better be on the phone with him regularly. Let him hear your voice regularly. And then when he does that, you will hear from him more often. And I tried to do that, and it worked. I ended up having a closer relationship with him when following that advice. So, but do I feel as if I had enough time? I have children now, and I know how much time I try to spend with them. It's different. You don't get to. But does that mean that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for example, didn't have any time with his father. Does that mean he's damaged because of it? Not necessarily. Upbringing by father, yes, it's important. Yes, it matters. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can always, as long as things are done for the right reason, He can always fill those gaps for you. So I don't feel anyway, as far as I'm concerned, I don't feel any damage because of the time I didn't spend with him. I look forward to bi'idhnillahi ta'ala eternity, of Allah's promise when He says, وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَاتَّبَعَتْهُمْ ذُرِّيَّاتُهُم بِإِيمَانٍ أَلْحَقْنَا بِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّاتِهِمْ. Those who believe and their offsprings follow them with faith, we will join them with their offspring. So I pray to Allah to make him in paradise, and to make sure that bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, if He looks at us with the eye of mercy, that we'll join with him and we'll have eternity to chat and make up for lost time.
I mean, inshallah. So I want to ask you one last question before you go, and thank you for spending time with us and offering your perspective and offering the Islamic wisdom about this form of marriage. So I think because one of the reasons why I thought it would be valuable to have you as a part of the conversation is that you come from a culture where it is accepted. And I know for me, just in being Muslim, this is related, it's a loose relation, but just in being Muslim and going to a Muslim country to see Islam normalized was very, very valuable for me as a Muslim. So in this specific topic of being in a place, being from a culture where the one aspect of Islam was normalized, is there anything that you think even Muslims in America and the West and UK could bring, if they're going to enter polygamy? Is there something they could do in terms of what kind of community they can try to build around them? Like, is there something we could take from, your culture where it's accepted that would sort of ease the process for people who are practicing it in the West?
The path of easing this process, in my opinion, is the closer you go to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the more you will find yourself in a position where you cannot, first of all, have any dislike towards anything which he did, right? In the Quran, we're told, فَلَا وَرَبِّكَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. By your Lord, they don't believe. Until what? حَتَّى يُحَكِّمُوكَ فِيمَا شَجَرَ بَيْنَهُم. Until they make you, O Muhammad, the judge regarding whatever disputes they have, right? I don't think this is right. I don't think this is, we all have different disputes. But Allah says we must make the Prophet Muhammad the judge. Now, if Allah had stopped there, it would have just been enough for us to just go to him and whatever he does, we make it. But Allah goes further. He says, ثُمَّ لَا يَجِدُوا فِي أَنفُسِهِمْ حَرَجًا مِمَّا قَضَيْتَ. Allah says, and then they do not find any discomfort. Haraj is like any, ill feeling or discomfort regarding what you have ordained for them. And then, وَيُسَلِّمُوا تَسْلِيمًا. And then they submit completely, right? That is how our attitude should be towards the Sunnah or anything that the Prophet Muhammad did. That we have, but of course, the more you grow closer in love to the Prophet Muhammad, the easier it is for you, the easier it will be for you to give up your egoistic or cultural desire for what you understand to be an application of the Sunnah, or something which the Prophet Muhammad actually practiced, or what he did. If you were to do that, then it makes it easier. Doesn't mean that it removes all the challenges. For example, the Prophet Muhammad we knew prayed tahajjud regularly. Does that make tahajjud easy to perform? No, not necessarily. It means you just keep trying, but you never dislike it. And if you struggle with it, you just keep trying to make sure that you work with it. So I would say, first things first, let's draw closer to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's the first thing, right? And then, of course, over time, learning about many of our role models, like many of the companions of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that actually were polygamous. I had to teach the Kitabun Nikah of Imam Ghazali, the Book of Marriage, and he said in it, he said many of the companions of the Prophet had two wives. He said you couldn't count how many of them had two wives, and enough of them had three or four, but you couldn't even count how many had two. And these were the people who understood the Sunnah, right? Hassan, the son of Ali, had many wives, right? This is Prophet Muhammad who he said about Hassan. He said, this is someone who is most resembling. He resembles me more, and he said Hussein resembles Ali more, right? So he said about Hassan resembled, and Hassan had many, many wives. right? So this is the understanding that it's the more you learn about the Sunnah, the more you draw closer to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the more you draw closer to his inheritors, and you see how they live the Sunnah, then maybe the easier it will be for us to understand that this is an institution that is palatable. This is an institution that is from the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And inshallah, in our times where you go to many Islamic lectures and you see, 40 women to 5 or 10 men, you see, and many single sisters that are unmarried have been looking to get married for decades, in some cases, years in some cases. So if you understand that this is an institution that actually facilitates for that, then it's something maybe we can all as a community start looking at in a different light. And of course, trying as much as possible to do it with taqwa in the best way that is pleasing to Allah, with the best of intentions, and of course relying on Allah for the best of results with it.
Alhamdulillah, Jazakallah khair, Ustadh. Could you give us your website name for your study Arabic program?
It's www.immersionarabic.com. So we teach basically Arabic with immersion, focusing on you using the language over a period of time. That's my passion. It's something I really enjoy doing, that I spend a lot of my free time doing.
Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair. Thank you for joining us. We know you have to go. We know it's very late where you are.
It's almost 2 a.m. and I have work tomorrow morning, or this morning, should I say.
Thank you for your knowledge and your experience. Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum. So inshallah, we want to get to audience questions. So please, we have some saved. Let me put up Ustadh Jubril's website, immersionarabic.com, and you can follow him. I think it was Study Arabic in Africa, but I'll double check in a moment. So please check out his website. It's on the screen. And so we're going to go to questions and comments now. So please put in your questions. And we have the coaches. So if you want to ask a really personal question, you can. Of course, you can say, from a friend or something. You don't have to say it's about you. But if you want to ask, more personal questions, whether you're in this union or you have a friend in the union or whatever it is, you can ask them. They've coached many people. So inshallah ta'ala, we await your questions. Was there anything that you wanted to touch on, Mom, before we go to the questions?
No, just to remind folks again, this is just another avenue that we wanted to explore, right, within our community. We talked about different other topics, and as we all know that this is quite talked about in the community. However, unfortunately, we do have a lot of mishaps, and we want to be able to bring these professional ladies, and at some point we will definitely have a brother on, maybe your brother, madam, over here, to talk to the brothers, because he does coach brothers as well, so that we can have a balanced perspective on this. So no, let's get to the questions and hear what the audience has to say.
Okay. So this is a great question. It's the first one I saw. So we'll start with you, Coach Mecca. This is a tough question. It's kind of personal. So you can say skip if you want to. It says from Baja Bay, did you ever feel like if you didn't agree or give polygamy a try, did you feel your husband would leave you? If you don't want to answer that, then you can sort of say how should a woman approach that? Okay.
I ain't scared. I am not scared. I'm from Philly, okay? So
yes, we know about Philly. But go ahead.
First and foremost, Philly is a loving city. It's a loving city. It is a loving city, okay? So,
it is, sister. We'll go with that. That was the question.
No, but it's some beautiful, beautiful, beautiful people here in Philadelphia. First, let me just say that. Shout out to Philly. But say that question again, because I got so Philly-fied.
Yeah, we know. We know, it's obvious. We can feel it through the screen.
Okay. Oh, I see it on the screen. Okay, got it. So, did I ever feel like it? No. You know what? I'm going to say this. Being as though that it was brought to the table when we were courting, as far as how would I feel about that? Mm-hmm. Now, if I had not if I felt like, no, this is not something I could do, I'm not a part of that, I don't want any parts of that or whatever. Yes, you're absolute. I would not be married to him and he would have not married me. And that is actually okay. That's not a bad thing, because he gave me a choice. He brought it up. He brought it to my attention. He never said that it was going to be something. He said it may be something that I may practice in the future. Do you think that that's something that you're going to be okay with, or you're open to? If I'd have said, no, I'm not open to it, no, I don't want it, I'm not about that life, he would have graciously said, have a good life, because you're not about to be my wife. Not in those exact words, but we wouldn't have married, because if obviously he did practice polygyny, and if I was still hanging on to those feelings, it would have been a problem and it would have ended in divorce. So I will say that he, in each and every situation, now, of course, any marriage after our marriage, it's obviously on the table because they know that he's married, and they have an option to choose. And if they chose, I mean, I'm quite sure that there may have been some courting situations where they said no, and I don't know nothing about them because obviously he did not marry them. But yeah, so it wasn't something that was brought on in the midst of our marriage, but more so in the beginning. And if I did not support it or did not want any parts of it, he would not have married me. And again, that is not to say anything to vilify any man, because a woman should have the right to choose if that's something that she wants to move forward with or not. And a man should have the right to be able to be himself and practice polygyny if he chooses to, and be and have a family, meaning wives that are going to be okay or supportive of that. And because in reality, just like my dear sister Nyla said earlier, he's marrying them, not me. I'm not marrying them. Y'all heard me say one-on-one, aka monogamy. We still have a monogamous situation. It's just that we now have a larger, family unit where we just so happen to share, obviously, a husband and children.
Okay, so let me push back on that a little bit. Okay, I get the part of vetting each other in the beginning of the marriage. However, there's another conversation in the communities that when you get married, you're in a monogamous situation for a number of years. The conversation never came up, but now it's coming up. So women now feel very torn, trapped in a situation they don't want to get divorced, and they may begrudgingly stay in a relationship just cause, right? Or they may end up getting a divorce. So we do have those, right? The two sides of the coin that we have to deal with. Like if you're going in it in the beginning and he said, listen, this is a lifestyle that I may, seriously consider, but you're in the middle of it, you're married after 10 years or whatever, and it never came up, but all of a sudden it came up, like, what the heck, you're about to now upset my whole situation here. And some people emotionally cannot deal with this, right? So how then as a coach, right, if they use coaching services, and I would definitely recommend for those who are in that type of situation to use a coach, right? Both the man and the woman, not just the woman, because sometimes we just focus on the woman and her emotional, you get this thing in the community, oh, the women are so emotional, but guess what? Being emotional is a good thing, people, right? We need to put it into perspective, but it has to be dealt with, because that is what then affects your entire relationship. So how then do you navigate that and try to make it work if you're already in a relationship for a number of years and it becomes something that's unexpected to you, right? Because you're going about your business trying to have a life. Now you have to consider this type of situation. So Sister Nyla, I'll have you, I see you nodding your head. So
yeah, because when it comes to that, definitely it's not a cookie cutter situation when it comes to that, because you will have people who say, well, he didn't, now we've been married this many years, and then now, and the people ask Coach Fatima the same thing, and Coach Nadir, those things where it's like, okay, well, how come, or why was it later on? Because they were 15 years in monogamy before I, before Coach Nadir and I got married. He was like, we married young. He and Coach Fatima, high school sweethearts, things like that. They was like, I didn't know anything. That wasn't. I didn't know anybody who was practicing it like that, anything like that. So things change along the way. People grow, people want more, and these different things. So it may not always be that polygyny, the way polygyny may come up to other people, won't be cookie cutter. The thing is this, I heard a woman say, and it was really interesting. I was like, wow, I want to look at that a little bit more because it makes sense. You have women who state that, oh, well, he forced me to accept polygyny, or he forced me into polygyny because I don't want polygyny, or I didn't want polygyny. Again, I will say, you're not practicing polygyny, your husband is. And that's how it goes. But the thing is, you are still an adult. The decisions that we make, a lot of decisions in our life will not be easy decisions. So I'm not going to pretend like these are easy decisions to make, but they are ours to make. Mm-hmm. And we have to be intelligent enough to be able to make these decisions for the betterment of ourselves, as well as so that betterment of ourselves will be the betterment of our family as a whole. So it's not just a me situation, it's a we situation. And I know people can say, well, he didn't think of a we situation. Well, you can't really say that, because when it comes down to it, this is still the head of the family that is doing these different things that can be beneficial, not just to him, but to the family as well. So it's just a different dynamics. The thing is, the lady made a comment about forced monogamy, because they'll say, oh, there's this forced polygyny because, I didn't want it and then now I'm stuck in polygyny. Technically, you're not, and you may have to make a hard decision or a difficult decision, whether it's to stay or whether it's to go, but it's still your decision to make, and you have to be comfortable in that decision. Same thing when it comes to, you say, okay, well, if you marry somebody else, then I'm going to leave you. Then he has to decide, well, instead of saying, oh, she forced me to be in monogamy, he still has a decision to make to say, you know what, well, either I'm going to stay with you and maybe be resentful, maybe we can work it out, or maybe we'll just get a divorce and you can be happy your way and I'll be happy mine. So it's not a cookie cutter way, but it's just really getting people to lay out the facts in addition to the feelings and the emotions, and trying to find, what's better, what's the best route for everybody involved, especially you, because you will have to carry this. So if you're going to be negative with it and you say, oh, well, this is forced on me, it's going to bleed into everything you do. It's going to bleed into your family. It's going to bleed into your marriage. It's going to bleed into those things. So it may be best for you to leave. But, that's not always the situation for everybody. So it's definitely not a cookie cutter. So it'll have to be a case-by-case basis when it comes to that.
Mm-hmm. Sister Mecca, any input on this?
Sorry?
Any input on what, anything you want to add to Sister Nyla's response?
Everything she said was on point, and I would just say that anybody that is looking to make those steps, you have to make sure that you're open. Your mind is open to the process, because you can't go in with a, type of mindset, because all that's going to do is hold you back. The whole purpose of coaching is to do the work. You have to be committed to it. You have to be open to it. And you have to be ready for the corrections. And also you have to be ready for the moments where you're going to be held accountable. Because this is not, I always tell this to all my clients, I am not team you. I am not team him. I am team right. Which side of that you fall on is up to you. I don't know. So sometimes you might love me. Sometimes you might not like me. It don't matter. I'm not here to be liked or loved. I'm here to help you reach your goals.
And she's very passionate about what she's doing, obviously.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, lady. So, Nuri, there's a question that just came in, I think needs to be answered by our coach. Does the man need to provide separate households for all his wives? Ladies.
No.
Well, how does that work?
Right. Short answer, no.
He can. No. Now, I mean, I've been in both positions where I have lived in the same home with my co-wives, and we like currently are living that big love lifestyle where we're in separate homes but on the same block. Like you can walk up the street next door, whatever. Hey, everybody is in and out. Like it's like even though we're separate homes, it's still different. But when we lived in the same home, it was still a home that was big enough to have separate spaces. Everybody had their own kitchens. Yes, it was 3 kitchens because we're talking about this was an estate that was almost 10,000 square feet. So everybody had their own kitchens, their own bedroom, bathrooms, their home private areas. It's just that we were literally the way that it was structured. We were all in the same building, but it was beautiful. But I mean, that might not be your situation,
Right?
I will always say that when people are courting, especially if you're going into polygyny, and for those women who are already currently in polygyny, they find out. I mean, I'm sorry, they're in a marriage where they're finding out that they're getting ready to go into polygyny. For both of those women, you can ask questions when it comes to courting or when it comes to trying to figure out what the structure of our family is about to change into. You can ask the question of what is the idea that what ideas or what plans do you have for our family? Like, are we going to be in separate homes because this is something that I require? Like what are your requirements, so that way you can speak on them and those things can possibly be followed and honored as far as each individual wife. So I mean, we lived in the same home, but at the same time, my husband realized and understands that having separate homes, even if they're close by, is best for each woman to be able to be themselves, to create their own personal space and their own comfortability of home and this, that, and the fourth. And it's still, it'd be close by, but again, it's still separated. So, but yeah, but it doesn't have to be separate.
So I just want to mention, someone asked, is that a fit question or an opinion question? I don't know what the person was looking for, but of course the fic answer would not change. What is obligatory for one wife is obligatory for each wife. However, we know that women can decide, just like women can decide they want to work. It's a man's obligation to provide, but if a woman decides she wants to work and contribute, she can. If women decide they want to live together, they can do that. So just to move, I don't know if you wanted to add to that, Coach Nyla, but just to move through the questions a little bit, because we have a couple. Okay, polygamy and the wives. Is there much competition among wives? If so, can this competition be beneficial to the union? Coach Nyla.
Is there much competition? See, when it comes to stuff like that, I'm my own competition and I've always been like that. Before polygyny, when I was a kid, when I was growing up, that was my thing. I'm like, because if I become better than you or do something better than you, then you're no longer, there's nothing else I can strive for, whatever. So me just constantly being a better me, that's that. However, you do have people that may be motivation for them. They're like, oh, well, she is really good at this, and I want to be good at this. So it's kind of that, a kind of a friendly competition type of thing. And it could be, like I said, it's to each his own. Everybody does not think the same or feel the same way. If it's beneficial, then alhamdulillah, that's great. I remember when I was in school and I would go into where I'm like, oh, this person is like, the A student and this and that, whatever. I'm like, oh, I bet you this time I'm gonna beat him in this, or I'm gonna beat her in this. I'm gonna be the A one. I'm gonna get 100 on my test, type of thing, because it was this friendly competition stuff. So it can be those things, but you have to be careful when it comes to that, because you'll have where we talk a lot about comparison being the thief of joy. When you're comparing yourself to what your co-wife has or what your co-wife does and these different things like that. And it's like you start to lose sight of what you have and what you have to offer. So if it's something that you always wanted to do, or if it's something that you're like, oh, you know what, I like this too, more than it being a competition type of thing, maybe it can be a what's the word I'm looking at, where you're helping each other out. I have no qualms or no issue with going to my co-wife and say, you know what, because she's an amazing artist, amazing decorator, all these different things. If it's something I want to know, so I'm like, hey, help me with this, or what do you think about this, or hey, can you teach me this thing? I'm very, very secure in my space and my place. Now, it wasn't always like that, but I'm very secure in my place that I can go and ask her, hey, help me with this. And I don't feel less than anything to do so. So it's just, being emotionally intelligent and being able to do that if that's how you do it. But, that's to each his own when it comes to that.
Okay, so 2 questions. We'll just forgive me. I just want to get to as much as we can. So we'll get back to this. We'll give you all the coach's information again. Can some people want to message privately? Then we have a question here. No? Okay. One here. It's for you and me, Mom. Inshallah, we will see if we can do another series to potentially have Black men who are here practicing polygyny. As we said, we wanted to try and give a unique perspective from different angles. So we did have Ustadh Jubril on today, who is from a culture where that is practiced. But yeah, that would be a great idea to have an African-American man on. Okay, there was a question here about okay, I'm gonna summarize it until I find it. If the man, and you guys can just answer from your opinion, the Vic answer is clearly no, but if the man cannot afford to take care of subsequent wives anymore, is the wife obligated to help? And so we'll take away obligated because we know the answer is no. Should she help?
Should she help?
Here's my thing. We always talk about wanting the family to win. And in order to have your family, in order for your family to win, you have to be in it to win it. You have to look at each other as a part of a team. Even, the even the people who sit on a bench still get the ring when the team wins. So, and they still practice hard in the gym, when it comes to that type of thing. So, like, I remember in the beginning, we came to the point where we like our team, we're Team Al Mujahid. That's what we are, and we want our team to win. We've always been a team. So when we meet for our family meetings or these different things like that, and there's certain things that may need to be spoken on, or certain things that fell, that probably fell by the wayside, we nip that in the butt right away, because we have to remind ourselves, what are we in this for? Are we in this, it's just about me, or is it about the team? So that's, let me see if I answered that question as, financially, yes. So when it comes down to, you don't know what can happen, anything can happen. So you say, okay, well, since you got in a car accident and you can't financially, take care of us anymore, then either somebody got to get divorced, or or the other wife gonna have to do this. If when it all comes down to, we should be able to maturely be able to step up and say, we want the family to win. It's not about this wife gets this and this wife gets this and this wife don't get this and these type of things, when you're thinking on the lines of family building and legacy.
I like that answer.
I just also want to add one thing that I always like to say: teamwork, it don't make the dream work. Teamwork makes the team work. Okay, teamwork makes the team work, regardless of what your position and where you may come in at. We in as a team, we're gonna make sure that we put in this work in order for the team to work, however that may be. And these questions are asked when it comes to polygyny, but that's not something that anybody thinks like for a second. If this was a monogamous situation and that housewife was at home or whatever, and her husband fell on hard times, and is she going to pitch in? She ain't going to think twice. She'll be like, how can I help you? Or how can I support you? What can I do? Like, that's all right. We got this, but as soon as it's a collective group, it's not saying that he's taking care of the other wives, it's his family. Because what about those kids? What about it? So in reality, we have to make sure that we're looking at it in a way where teamwork is making the team work. however that may be. And it may not necessarily be financial. It may be emotional. It may be spiritual, whatever that case may be. Because everybody always focus on money. But if the money right and everything else wrong, then what?
Then what? Mm-hmm.
Good point. Love that answer. Okay, Nur, let's get this question. Does the first wife have to be financially obligated to take care of the subsequent wives if husband cannot afford to do so?
Well, that's what they answered, Mom.
That's what they answered? Okay, I'm sorry.
I think their answer was that he should, or he
should step up if something happens to him as in a monogamous marriage. And I
guess I almost don't want people to think that obviously it's not an obligation. So if you feel you should, out of the kindness of your heart, then do, obviously, okay, this is my opinion, then do that. And if you can't, then, it's not your obligation. It's the same as when a wife works in marriage, right? If she feels that working will help her husband and that's what she wants to do, great. If she feels like, well, that's your responsibility, you figure it out, well, she can do that too.
And when she helps, that's what is considered.
Sorry?
And when she does help in that way, if she does help financially in that way, what is that considered to be Islamically?
Yeah, charity.
It's exactly. Hello.
I need all the blessings I can get. So look, I need like I don't have time.
Right. I think this was for Coach Nyla earlier. Mm-hmm. You talked about getting married and you felt, well, it's halal, and you got married to someone who's already married. Someone says, is this a question? They might just be making a statement. It is discourteous not to ask about the well-being or wherewithal of the co-wife you are marrying a woman's husband.
You're actually marrying a man who's actually married to someone else. So that's the thing. We get so possessive and we're like, well, you're marrying this woman's husband. You're like, actually, yes, he's married to her, but he's a man who is actually able to marry up to 4 and polygyny. So when it all comes down to it, it's not to the point where that I have no care about a person's well-being. You can ask my co-wife a number of times. I tried to reach out to her, just our whole communication, because my thing is I like sisterhood. Sisterhood is a big thing for me. So me getting into polygyny was about sisterhood as well. It's like, oh man, we gonna do this. I got a friend, blah, blah, blah. So that was my mentality. So when people make those statements or those assumptions where a second wife or incoming wife or anything like that doesn't care about the first wife or anything like that because she married her husband, that is when a person is projecting their own ideas and insecurities and whatever else it is, because that's how you feel about the situation. Or so you assume that someone else may feel that way about the situation. The thing is, in my mind, is like sisterhood, hello. So I wouldn't look at it as somebody is going to feel away because they say, oh, well, that's her husband. No, that's a man who happens to be married to someone else who also can marry another person after me and another person after that. So, we have to look at it in the broader scope of things. Sometimes we think that because of our own little, and I'm sorry to say that if I don't want to make anybody feel a type of way by saying little, but we have our own ideas. And sometimes it is minute and it's minuscule where we only see it in this little box. And to other people don't even see it that way. They see a bigger picture, or they see the legacy, or they see the sisterhood, or they see the beauty of it. So it's, to you, it may be inconsiderate or discourteous or anything like that. But to another one, be like, oh, well, yeah, I can see how you can see the sisterhood. Why would you think somebody would feel a certain way? Mm-hmm. And no one goes into the second wife and say, well, hey, first wives, do you go and make sure that the second wives are okay when they get married to the husband? Hey, do you go and say, hey, let me make it easy for her because she's going to be talked about so bad, or the society don't like that, so let me make it easy for her. No one talks about that, but that's
Yeah, and I think, of course, that's all part of being educated about the process and trying to move forward in a positive way. Because culturally speaking, no, the community does not necessarily accept it. So it is going to be difficult, right? And I think we also need to give people their space to work within the scope of that because it's not going to be easy. So again, the point of our show is really to talk about these things, to bring it to the forefront, to basically find some answers. And as coaches, I'm really so happy that you guys are there. And if there are other coaches out there, please let us know who you are because it's important. It's like any other topic in our community where, yeah, we do have Muslims that are dealing with substance abuse and all of these other things, right? And we don't necessarily have the tools to share with them, or do we know who the counselors are that are Muslims that can help them. And that also helps in rebuilding our family. If we can use these resources, it's a beautiful thing. So we all go through stages in that. And I just also want to say one last thing. And this is my personal opinion. Yes, it is the first woman's husband. And then he's going to be your husband, because again, we're human beings. We are emotional on certain things and we are very possessive. And those are things that we have to work on. It's a work in progress. So sometimes it depends on again, the cultural impact on us, how we were raised, particularly, like the brother said. To him, it's not a big deal, but he chose not to. Right? He chose not to because there were some pluses and minuses, but that's the culture. So I just think that plays into a lot of the emotions that come up that we have to deal with. And it's great that you guys are there to help to support that. Nur, you have another question? The children, yes.
Please get your questions in within the next 2 minutes. Inshallah, we're going to try to wrap it up. Yeah. So the question is, how should you be there emotionally for the children if children are involved? How do you make them feel okay as well?
Well, one of the ways of being there is, it's all it's all about how you're introduced to the children, and on top of that, how that mama is with the children that the mom that they reside with, how she is, and the energy that she brings. Sister Nyla laughing because she know what I'm talking about. Okay. If mom is not okay and she look like she hurt and them kids see it, they're not gonna like the other wife. And they're not going to be easily open to communicating, because that incoming wife could very well be open, like she wants to get a chance to know those children and this, that, and the fourth, or whatever. But those kids, especially if they're older, they're sitting there like, you the one who made my mom mad. You the one that be having my mom crying every night. No, she's not. But okay, you can't explain that to a child. But absolutely, it's important for families to talk to their children, for fathers to talk to their children as they're going through this process. You talk to your wife or wives, letting them know that you're bringing in somebody else, or let's say wife, because maybe they may be oblivious to the practice of polygyny and being a part of a polygynous family. But that man, that leader, that head, that maintainer, and that protector of that family, those children, should also be communicating with them to let them know in their own language and on their own level. Because don't say, they too young. No, these kids smart. They know. You can talk to them in a language and in a way where they have a understanding. Like, Abby, Baba, Papa, Daddy not going to be here every day. And like you're used to seeing. And this is why, remember we talked about this story. You remember when we said this, and this is what I'm about to get ready to do. And then open it for them to share their feelings, because it's not just for you to tell them about it. It's also for you to have an understanding and an openness of how they're processing it in that moment, as well as throughout the whole process. Now, women are also responsible for the other children as well. What we don't want to do is we don't want to give off bad energy to somebody else's kids because you don't like that she's there. The kids ain't got nothing to do with it.
Yes.
You alhamdulillah, we heard a beautiful experience of the brother that just left the stage, where he had 35 brothers and sisters. 35. He makes 36. Where he was able to have, he said he was in, when he took the picture for his graduation, he was with his 4 moms. Like our kids, they all had, we creatively, they call all of us moms in different language. So, and they know that they have 3 moms. Mm-hmm. And they see it as that, and we treat them like they're our children, because they are our children. Mm-hmm. I didn't birth you, that don't mean I'm not your mama.
Thank you.
I'm just saying, you know, and he was able to express that. And it was like, I felt like I was listening to one of the conversations that we have with our kids, or when people ask our kids about how does it feel being a kid in polygyny, like they about to hear like some whatever type of story, like they're looking for drama. But in reality, they know that they have multiple moms that love them. They know that they have moms that connect with them differently than their biological mom, where maybe they have a better understanding and they can communicate in this area and on this particular topic with this particular mom that maybe their biological mom can't and may not necessarily understand, and they have that outlet. Mm-hmm. But it's just like, make sure that if you are a part of this and you're struggling and adjusting emotionally, which is natural, understand that if there are children involved, that you do not want to take that energy out towards those children or allow it to bleed out to them while you're doing your work and taking care of your emotional, you know, ups and downs and roller coasters, because they're learning from you. They're learning from you. If they see that you're being cordial and respectful, guess what they're going to mirror? You, and they're going to be cordial and respectful, and then possibly open to the point where they may be able to build some type of parenthood relationship, as far as parenthood and childhood relationship with one another. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Thank you for that. Yes. Nadia, you want to add something there?
Let me try to see. Oh,
you're ready.
No, she she covered it, because it's, you know, I would say the same thing. And that's the thing, the mothers, we do set the stage. Yes, the father should be doing his part as well, because we can, you know, we can have our feelings and these different things, but they do want to know, and he is the leader. So they're like, okay, let us know what's going on, you know, type of thing. I know in my children, because people, it's different dynamics, and you do have to understand the different dynamics. I came in, not only, you know, as a divorcee, so I was a single parent entering into polygyny. So I had to prepare my children for not only another person, you know, like a father figure, their bonus dad, you know, their Adi, you know, they say that, but I had to prepare them also, even for my co-wife, even though my co-wife and I were cordial and we didn't have we didn't have the best relationship at the beginning. They never knew that. I prepared them to the point where it was like, okay, well, you know what? You see her, she may have to tell you something. These things were prepared, and we have to be able to be mature enough to say, you know what? Okay, I may be feeling this way, but in the long run, what is that going to look like? You know, am I destroying bridges? Am I tearing down some things that I might have to fix later? You know, so it's a number of those different things. And I love what Nandi said about, you know, being able to sit the children down or speak to them in their language. And also, like, okay, well, he's not going to be here, but this is what we're going to do. This is going to be our time to do this and that. It's going to be some changes, and this is what the changes are going to do. You're going to tell them that when they start school. You're going to talk to them about these different things. So when there's changes in their lives, regardless of what it is, you should be able to sit down with your children and talk about those changes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, there's a question that the brother had before this question, so he should answer both of them. He talked about the difficulties. I think he said something about, you know, sisters pretend or something like that. They're being sisterly and make it difficult. Yeah, this question right here. Okay, I'm going to read this one. Why does it seem that sisters claim to care about sisters, yet they make polygamy difficult when it actually helps women more than men?
That would be my thing. I'm like, I don't know, because I said we as women, and I'm just saying women, I said we are the oppressors I know, I'm sorry, but it is what it is. And I tease a lot because I'm a big fan of like Muhammad. So I'll be like, you my opposer, you my oppressor. So my thing is that yeah, my thing is, I do want for my sister what I want. People would come at me. I had so many people come at me, was like, no, da, 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 da. They told my co-wife that I was fake. They was like, I was just trying to be nice because I got some ulterior motives. You have so many different things like this. It's like, she could not possibly be that nice. She could not possibly be that way. I'm like, seriously, I'm a convert. I know I know what jahiliyyah looks like. I know what just the backstabbing and the ugliness. So when I saw the beauty of Islam, I didn't look at the. Oh my gosh! I said if it was for the people, I mean, I love my Muslim brothers and sisters, I do. But I said if it was for the people, I would have left Islam a long time ago. It's for Allah that I'm here, because it does go into a point where it's like, oh yeah, I want this, but then next thing you know, you're backbiting or you're doing these things and this is other stuff, and it's really, we need to stop it. We really need to stop it. So yeah, my thing is, I truly want for my sister what I want for myself. I want her to have good. I remember even before Islam, I heard something some lady said before. She was like, I love my husband. I really love him, but he is so good to me. And I see there's a lot of ladies out here that don't have this beautiful stuff that I have in my husband. I wish I can bottle him up and just, give him to like these women so they can be happy. And everything. I understand what that looks like. I understand you have somebody that's good and you see somebody that you be like, man, she's struggling, or oh, she's nice, and you know what, she wants this type of thing. That would be good. But everybody is not like that. But you would think that, well, whatever. I'm gonna leave it at that. That's the thing. You do have people that are very fake, and inshallah, may Allah just soften our hearts and make us better. I mean, especially as Muslims, because we do have the truth, and we should be wanting for each other what we want for ourselves.
Okay, great.
I
Now,
just want to add to that.
yeah,
I just want to add to that because there's another end where you do have some that come in and they fake the funk, and you have
That
some
too.
that also come in and they do actually they make the claims because maybe that may be true, but it's difficult for them to deal with the emotional things that come about. And if we don't know, if we allow our emotions to mislead us, then it obviously is going to make it difficult for not just everybody that's around us, but ourselves as well. So sometimes it's like, you may want it, because I know that I was all for it in the beginning, but I adjusted after the fact. And I wasn't trying to make it difficult for anybody, but it is what it is. I was like, yes, okay, let's go for it. Here you go, do this and do that. And then once it hit me that, wait a minute, he's going to be with another woman. Wait a minute, he's like, he's not going to be here. He's going to be, all kind of things go in your mind. And then again, if you do not prepare yourself for these type of emotions or the rush of emotions and the thoughts that may come to mind, it will mislead you and misguide you in a way where you didn't all. It's almost like you're like doing a whole 180, like you're right here, and the next thing you know, you're on the other side of the spectrum, and you're trying to get to a middle ground. You're trying to get to a middle ground where the foundation is a little bit more sturdy, because okay, you were so gung-ho and for it, and it actually was supportive of it, without knowing what comes along with it. And then once you figure that out and had that experience, you're on the other end where you're like, what the hell am I doing? Why am I here? I don't like you. I don't want to be around you. I don't want to hear from you. Don't touch me. Don't talk to me. I don't want to see her, hear about her. Don't talk about her, and this, that, and the fourth, where the difficulty comes into play. And it's just like you're trying to find a middle ground, like as far as how can I be able to support him and be able to have a better version of myself, of accepting that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed before our family as well as myself, in a way where it's like, it's kind of like cool, like what is it, cruise control. I'm on cruise control, but before I was driving recklessly. In the beginning, emotionally, it's like you're driving recklessly, but now you're trying to come to that calm. So it's just like, we have to understand that sometimes there's some fakers, and sometimes there's just people who do not know how to navigate those intense emotions that come along with the beginning process of being in polygyny, and they're trying to find their way.
And Shaitan really will be at your ear. And Shaitan will be at you because Shaitan wants to break up the family. And if Shaitan want to break up the family, Shaitan gonna make polygyny sound like it's the devil. So
Okay, before we get to this last question, I do want to state this based on the information that I know and or heard about. But I think you guys mentioned it before though, because in my humble opinion, the responsibility is solely placed, but the majority, I would say 90% of the responsibility should be placed on the male, for preparing everybody for this, right? Because again, if he is not emotionally prepared, he's not financially prepared, he's not logically prepared, all of the things, because sometimes I think it's a disadvantage when sisters seem to be the one to be blamed if things aren't working out. When we know that a lot of times these brothers are not prepared. Listen, it's your choice. You want to do what you want to do. It is permissible. However, going into any situation, particularly when you're dealing with different souls, different emotions, different everything, you have to be prepared for this. And people guarantee you will go through an emotional roller coaster. Oftentimes, I think men try to hide that emotional wave that they're riding, right? And place it on sisters and say, hey, well, you deal with it. I'm permitted to do this, but you deal with it. Well, what about the pre-counseling? What about you preparing yourself? Because at the end of the day, if you want this to survive, you have to constantly be in counseling, not only with yourself, with your partner. And if you're running into difficulty, find someone like you sisters or brothers to deal with stuff like this. Because again, as someone correctly said, what about the children, right? We know of some relationships that it's an absolute mess. And these kids come out an absolute mess. We allow to protect them all. But again, it is really preparing ourselves to get into any type of relationship, whether it's monogamy or not, but polygamy. It's more of a challenge because you're dealing with more than one adult. You're not dealing with children. You're dealing with adults who then at some point in time will have your children. So you have to create an environment that makes everyone feel loved, everyone feels special, and all of those things as we've seen in our examples. So I just wanted to put that in there. Nur, let's ask you a question.
Yeah, I think we have just two more questions. And I want to add to that because I don't think that it's the woman's responsibility to make it easy. I think if you have a wife that makes polygamy easy for you, you should be very grateful. I think that, the Prophet's wives had difficulties and it was halal. They were the best of women. It was a part of their culture. They had all the things that could make it as easy as possible. And it wasn't always easy, right? So as long as the woman is not doing anything haram, she may not make it easy. She may not want to have a relationship, or she may not be happy about it, or whatever it is. So I think, I also sort of just want to second that sentiment of the idea that women should make it easy, I think is a bit of a problem. But if they do, mashallah. So let me go to the next question. Okay, I think you guys answered that. You do not live together. This was the question before.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe Coach Nyla, you can answer this one if it applies, or we can skip it.
Okay. So, this is the first one. Okay. That depends. Here's the thing. It's about being legally married. If so, would that be one of the causes of the wives being subject to types of jealousy? That's an interesting question, because it doesn't have to be that way. The legal thing, that's putting the state in it. You don't have to do that. You can have husbands who practice polygyny that none of them are legally. You got legally and lawfully and these different things like that. Because people start asking, and it's another conversation for another time, but people will say, well, then what about their rights? And what about these things? And That's what contracts are for. That's what trusts are for. That's for all these other things like that. So you don't necessarily have to have a marriage license or, this type of thing to be married to a person. So no, the first wife does not have to. I've seen a number of marriages or polygynous marriages where it'll be one of the incoming wives that will be on paper, so to speak, so she can come into the country or whatever. So it's a lot of different ways that they do that. But no, that's not a necessarily that's obligatory or something that has to happen, that the first wife has to be legally married, and that could cause the jealousy. We have so many reasons why jealousy can pop up. Just like I told people, they were like, well, when he marries again, then come and talk to me, Coach Nyla, because you don't know what it looked like. I know what jealousy feels like. I don't need another person. Mind you, he was already married to someone else. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, if I could choose to be jealous of a lot of different things, I could, so yeah, jealousy. And I do a number of videos on it. I actually have a challenge coming up about jealousy. It's called Break Free from Jealousy and Polygyny, because of that's been a huge, huge thing that women talk about a lot, is the jealousy and polygyny.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's go to, I think this can be our last question. Okay. All right. Most of us who were in the streets were illegal poly practitioners. If a man expresses this in the beginning before the marriage and the sister accepts his intention to do it in the legal way, and when it's time she changes her mind, what should he do?
Change her mind.
Tell a man what he gonna do.
That's her choice.
Listen, let me say this.
You certainly can't strap her down, but certainly, I mean, it's like anything else, right? Someone decides to say, "Hey, well, guess what? I don't feel like going to the movies anymore tonight. What are you gonna do? You're gonna get upset?"
Yeah.
That's the simplest way of putting it. But again, maybe she examined it and she figured like this is not the thing for me. Then you got to move on, brother, to another sister.
Yeah, right, dude. You gotta figure that out on your own. Like, and we talked about that earlier. Do you say, okay, well, she changed her mind and I'll just go along with that, but then later on hold her accountable for forcing you into forced monogamy, and then you have some issues with her later on? Or do you say, you know what, well, this is not the one for me? Like I said, where her husband talked to her before, it was like, hey, she's like, we want to be married because that's what he wanted to do. He didn't say that's what I'm going, maybe this will be something later on. So you have to make that decision. So he could have made a decision. They both could have made a decision like, okay, well, if you want to practice this, I'm go ahead, bro. You do that without me, type of thing. So yeah, you have to make that decision. You have to make that choice. But when it all comes down to it, you have to sit in that decision. Either you're going to be okay with it and say, well, I made that decision, and not blame somebody else about the decision you made, and be an adult about it. It may not always be the easy decision, but it's still your choice.
And it's still her choice as well.
And her choice as well, exactly.
Her choices.
All right, but I just want to add to that also, because I see like a bit of like just maybe something missing in here, because he said if he expressed it in the beginning of the marriage to the sister and she accepted those intentions, and then when it's time, then she changes her mind. What happened in the beginning and when it's time? Did y'all have discussions? Did y'all talk about it? Was there education? Was there any type of work that was done in between? You can't just say, oh, I might do it. Are you good with it? Okay, cool. And then 5-10 years later, okay, I'm about to practice it. It don't work that way. So if she's not on board, don't automatically say, all right, I'm divorcing you. No, you got work to do. You got work to do because you dropped the ball when she said, okay, where was it that you got her information? Where was it that you both went together and maybe did something as far as education and informing and being able to know more about it, so that way if and when you do practice it, you are a little bit more prepared. You're a little bit more prepared, during that time, opposed to if nothing is done other than her saying, okay, I'm cool with it 5-6 years before you actually decided to practice it. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Right. Have the conversation.
There's so much more to unpack with this topic. And inshallah, we guys will have you back again. You contributed so much, and I hope our audience have learned a lot. But yeah, it's a conversation that really needs to be talked about publicly. I know in our little community and in little pockets, people talk and whisper about these things. But when we talk about it properly and educate people about it properly, I think then you can get the best results.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because we will probably talk about, the brothers who just show up with a wife, or some brothers who have a wife and nobody ever knew about it. Everybody showed up at the funeral or something, like okay, what's going on? That type of thing. So transparency, I think it's really, really important in our community when we deal with these matters. And again, if something is permissible, it's permissible. If I have a choice, I have a choice. It's a simple ABC arithmetic type of thing. But of course, unpacking all of the psychological trauma and all of those things that you bring with it that you said earlier, those are things we have to work through.
Yeah.
Nura, any other questions before we close out?
There was an inheritance question, but alhamdulillah, I see that Coach Nazir, who is Coach Nyla's husband, answered it. So inshallah, maybe we can come again, perhaps if we do another series and talk about polygamy and add that aspect of legality to the conversation. I guess one thing I did want to add is that it is important. I think everyone basically said it, but the idea of choice, right? If a man wants to be polygamous and the first wife does not, he can choose to let it go and be monogamous. She can choose to let it go and say, you know what, I still want to be with this person. So if that's what you're going to do, go ahead. Because I think sometimes divorce is brought up too often when it comes to polygamy, if there's a friction. And this is a series on rebuilding the Black Muslim family. So inshallah, we want people to stay married. We want people to work it out. So whichever way it goes, to just be satisfied in your marriage, whether that means it becomes polygamous or you remain monogamous. So alhamdulillah, I really benefited a lot, learned from you ladies, as well as Ustadh Jubril. So please give everyone your contact, let them know if you're taking clients currently and how they can reach you.
I think their email is up there, their contact information. And lastly, before we go out, please again donate to Masjid of Islam. They were very gracious in having us have this series, and inshallah we will continue to do the series and bring such important sisters and brothers from the community to expose them to the larger audience, to say, hey, these things are available, let's use it, let's try to build our family structure even stronger, and use the resources that are available to them.
So let me just get their cash app. While I pull that up, Coach Mecca, Coach Mecca. Mecca, okay.
Either way, but yes.
How can people reach you, and are you currently taking clients?
Okay, so I can be reached at thecowifecoach.com. So is
yes, on the screen.
Yes. And I do have a few spaces, not a lot, but a few spaces for clients, but I actually am doing something which you can actually look on my website and see. It's called the Co-Wife Collective, where it's more group coaching, personal one-on-one, but in a group effort. But I am taking a few one-on-one clients, and all the information is on my website. And on all social platforms, you can catch me at the Co-Wife Coach. Facebook is Mecca the Co-Wife Coach.
Okay, and Coach Nyla, please let us know. And everyone, if you could pay attention to the screen as well, we're going to put it up on the screen, the information to donate to Masjid Muhammed, the information for, I'm drawing a blank, outstanding personal relationships, as well as Coach Mecca. We don't have your information, but if someone could write it in the comments if you have a chance. But
I see Nuri. I see outstanding personal relationships.
Yeah, that's Coach Nyla.
Okay. Oh, Sister Mecca. She's a co-wife coach.
The co-wifecoach.com.
Yeah.
Co-wifecoach.com. Okay.
And I am taking some new clients, and they can register and apply at coachnyla.com.
Great. And is that your husband, Nasir?
Yes, and so you can be reached at, if our social media handles is
Okay.
Outstanding personal relationships, but IG is outstanding relationships. So, and he has a number of courses. So definitely check us out at outstandingpersonalrelationships.com.
Fantastic. Well, Sister Mecca.
Correction. It's the co-wife coach, www.thecowifecoach.com.
Okay. May Allah bless you all for sharing with us, and bless your families. And inshallah, you continue to have a strong and healthy polygamous marriage, and share your knowledge with us. And for those of you who joined us, if we've said anything that may have offended anyone, we do apologize for that. But again, we are two human beings. But Brother Nasir, you're on quite often, so please prepare yourself to come on our program in the future. And Sister Mecca, I believe you told me your husband also coaches the brothers, right? So it will be beautiful to have both of your husbands on to give their perspective. So we will be getting in touch with them, just so you know. So thank you all. Nur, any last words?
No, alhamdulillah. Thank you all for joining us. Please join us next week. I believe the topic is traditional marriage versus modern marriage. Not really versus, but discussing both forms of marriage. So inshallah ta'ala, alhamdulillah, again, we've had a great conversation, and both of the ladies have active social media. I'm familiar with Coach Mecca's work on Instagram and Coach Nyla on YouTube. So they have lots of videos. If you're interested in anything they had to say today, please head over to their social media. Thank you all for joining us. We hope to see you next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you so much.